I don't know. We'll just start.
Okay.
All right. We're
Sounds
back.
good.
Fight the Fear podcast. New season. We're going to be talking about all things macabre, maybe mysterious,
Excellent.
maybe spiritual, maybe political. Who knows? I don't know. I got my good buddy Jeff Hill sitting here with me. Jeff, how far do we go back? Like first grade?
Probably. Yeah.
Now
a long time
Now
ago.
we're in our late 20s.
Yeah, 45 years ago or something. Yeah.
So we're going to shoot the shit about a variety of topics, but today I want to get into the macabre a little bit. I was scanning headlines, and I came across this headline. Now, we live in Indiana, so this caught my eye. This headline says, Indiana serial killer's 18-acre property littered with 10,000 human remains still hides secrets. Authorities continue to identify Herb Baumeister's victims nearly 30 years after his arrest. And this happened down near Indianapolis in the 80s.
In the 80s, huh?
In the late 80s, early 90s.
And they just discovered it?
No, they're still discovering stuff from it.
Okay, so they caught him back then, but they're still finding things.
They caught him, and while he was out apparently on bond or something, before they could even charge him with anything, he ran up to Canada and killed himself.
Wow.
So it's like, couldn't get anything out of him. But what started it was his kid found a skull on their property when they moved. They moved into this new, I guess you call it a ranch, a farm.
Yeah.
Nice big mansion type house, 18 acres of property, trails, kids out messing around. Hey, Dad.
Look what I found.
Is this a caveman? No, that's Jerry from down the street.
Man, that had to be a shock.
Yeah, so I think once the kid got a hold of the that information that was there, and told mom, then all hell broke loose and there was an investigation. Cops were on the property. And it's like one of these things you hear about where they couldn't find anything or they just found a few things. And the wife ended up figuring out that he was a killer, and she divorced him and all this other stuff. And thank goodness that she didn't become victim number 12 or whatever it was. But
So you said 10,000 human remains,
this
but
is
that's
what got
just
me.
bones?
I feel like that's
Wow.
because
Well, that still don't add up to
10,000.
10,000.
So let's just say 10,000. It says burnt and crushed skeletal remains. So like teeth, shards of bone, things like that.
So
Probably,
you got 206 bones in the human body.
yeah.
So even if you have that, and there's
It's only a couple thousand, even if it was 25. So, but here's what's crazy about this guy though. It says, what does it say here? So what it was, there was a guy that was disappeared around that time from that area. He was reported missing, and that's how they figured it out to connect it back to this, because it was his remains that they found most recently.
wow.
It says here, 4 decades later, authorities are still uncovering secrets buried under the vast property. Jeffrey A. Jones, who was reported missing in 1993, became the latest victim identified by the Hamilton County Coroner's Office from his remains that they found.
Did they say? Did they have any type of lead into how he killed him, or maybe all kinds of different ways?
It just says the way that they found the remains, it's hard to tell because they're burnt and crushed.
Yeah, so long ago.
And let's see here. It says this is the 3rd victim from that property to be identified in just the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was making it real hard for them to figure out. But I had this other, I looked up, hold on, let me find this other thing. give you a little background here on this guy. Herbert Richard Baumeister, born in 1947, died in 1996. He was an American businessman and suspected serial killer.
I think it's
He came under investigation for murdering over a dozen men in the early 90s, most of whom were last seen at gay bars. Police found the remains of 11 men. 8 have been identified on his property. He died by suicide after a warrant was issued for his arrest. He was later linked to a series of murders of at least 11 men along I70, which occurred in the early 80s to the early 90s. He was said he was a businessman, and I was trying to see what kind of business he was into besides
well, the killing business, I would say. What county or town was this in Indiana?
Westfield.
Okay. All right.
I think that's right around Indy.
Yeah.
Born in Indianapolis. He was the oldest of 4 kids. His dad was an anesthesiologist. His childhood was reportedly normal, but he began to exhibit antisocial behavior by the onset of adolescence. Friends recalled his urophilia and how he would ponder what it would be like to taste urine.
Yummy.
All right, and then he enjoyed. Oh, okay. This is different. This is on Wikipedia, by the way. He enjoyed urinating on teachers' desks and playing with dead animals. So that reminds me of like the Dahmer.
Well, there you go.
Kind of thing.
That's a common thing. The dead animal thing.
And urinating on the teacher's desk. I mean,
that's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah. In his teens, his behavior caused his father to have him submit to mental examinations. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder, but did not receive further psychiatric treatment.
Yeah, I guess if you're, what was he, kind of in the 50s, kind of growing up, adolescent in the 50s, so I'm sure that wasn't, it was kind of frowned upon back then. I mean, kind of shunned. You didn't really seek some help for those types of things back then.
And he had 3 stints at college. He went to Indiana University for a semester, quit, went back 2 years later, went to Butler University 3 years after that. As an adult, he drifted through a series of jobs, but they said he had a strong work ethic, but he also had increasingly bizarre behavior.
Yeah, well, that's dedication. Kill a baker's dozen.
Got married. They had 3 kids. His wife later in an interview said they had only been intimate 6 times in 25 years of marriage. Well, 3 of those times were good.
Well, that's a pretty good average, 500. You're batting 500.
And I don't know why she would reveal all this, but she said she never saw her husband nude.
Ooh.
Okay. Well,
well, obviously he was hiding a lot of things. Not just the way he looked.
6 months after they got married, he was committed to a psychiatric hospital by his father for 2 months because his wife claimed he was hurting and needed help. He eventually founded the successful 2-store Save-A-Lot thrift store chain in Indianapolis in 1988. Save-A-Lot.
Mr. Save-A-Lot.
I wonder if that's Save-A-Lot that we know now, though. I mean, it must be, right? It said he had 2 stores. So...
The old pea drinker.
They gave the nickname the I70 Strangler. Was an unidentified serial killer who killed at least 11 young boys and adult men in Indiana and Ohio between June of 1980 and October of 1991 and would dump their bodies near Interstate 70. The killer met his victims in popular gay bars and other similar establishments within a 4-block radius. All of the victims were later found naked or partially clothed near I-70, often dumped in rivers, streams, and ditches in the rural countryside, and each one had been strangled to death. So I wonder if he was like, because he was kind of odd, he looked unassuming, but he was probably strong as hell. He had that crazy R strength.
Yeah, well, drinking pee will do that to you.
Drinking the pee of his victims.
Yeah, who knows? So you wonder if he was, a latent gay individual himself, or he was homophobic and wanted to kill him for, crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It said though officially unsolved, that he was named the prime suspect in April of 99. According to investigators, bodies related to the I-70 Strangler case stopped being found in 1991 after he bought the Fox Hollow Farm, the 18-acre property, which he used later as a burial site for his victims. And then it goes on to talk about some of the victims, which is kind of, how is he, like you said, is it latent where he's hanging out enough to know who's who? Like, well, to get on his radar, because, or was it something to do with his work, because he had that business? So I don't know.
Sure. Meet a lot of people if you own a Save-A-Lot, I'm sure. But, if you've only been intimate with your wife 6 times, that's kind of a red flag.
Yeah. Also, how they figured this all out later on, that it was just a 4-block radius, is crazy.
Wow.
Because they didn't figure that out at first. That was later.
And then you said he became the prime suspect in 99, which was 3 years after he decided the heat was on and killed himself.
Right.
So, interesting.
It says he died in 96. So, what's it say here? So it talks about some of the victims, I guess, they found on his property. The body of a 15-year-old Michael Sean Petrie was discovered naked in rural Hamilton County on June 16, 1980. He was a male prostitute. How the hell? Spent most of his time around those same gay bars. He was reported missing, and 3 days later, he was observed at different parts of the city in a stranger's car. The cause of death? Strangulation.
Wow.
I can get my head around the fact that he's an adult and this is a 15-year-old kid. But then it goes on. The topless corpse of Maurice Taylor, 22, July 21st, 1982, Hamilton County, Indiana. The cause of death was not sufficiently established. Law enforcement suspected had been strangled. Taylor was a vagrant who lived in the boiler room of an apartment complex in Indianapolis. And due to his financial difficulties, he offered sexual services around the gay bars.
Yeah, preying on the most disadvantaged people,
That takes some investigating, though. That takes some work to find those people out.
And here we are 40 years later, and they're still digging into it and finding things.
The next one was 14, Delvoyd Lee Baker, Hamilton County, October 82. It seems to be, if the pattern I'm seeing here is like summer to fall, like it's June, then July, then nothing till October, then nothing for another year in May. This person was, let's see, where did I see that? Boarded, got into a blue van driven by a young white man with a bushy mustache. The boy's parents told the police he had been riding his bike to the city on the night of his disappearance from where he called home at 10:30 p.m. to inform them he was going to be late because he wanted to go to the cinema. It was later established that he had actually been cruising the Indianapolis gay bars for the last 3 months and had been a victim of child sexual abuse. Man. The next one, Michael Riley, 22, May of 83, visited the Vogue Theater, a nightclub, which would have been in that 4-block radius, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Was last seen with an unidentified man with whom he later left. February of 98, an Indianapolis resident contacted police claiming that Baumeister was the man that he was seen with. They confirmed it, I guess. A nude body was found in a ditch southeast of Greenfield on June 5th. The autopsy determined he had been strangled, with the perpetrator likely using a towel. That's odd. Something about, like, I don't give it much thought about taking someone's life, but like strangulation, there's something there with like the theory of like power, dominance.
Very intimate, hands-on. You have to be right involved, not like shooting somebody.
Eradicating the thing that you don't want to exist anymore, and then you physically feel the life leave the body.
Yeah.
Like,
and most likely, unless it was from behind, you're looking at that person in the face, in the eyes,
Yeah.
Could have been from behind, who knows, but
yeah. And it seemed like maybe he wouldn't stray much from a certain type because there's a lot of teens here, young, early 20s. Maybe they were frail, small frame people.
Yeah, like you said, maybe somebody he can overpower and didn't pose much of a threat.
Right.
And who knows what kind of intoxicants might have been involved.
Yeah. That was the Vogue Theater. Eric Roediger. 17, May 7th, 1985. Shirtless again. Body found a few days later near a stream. This was in rural Ohio, east of Lewisburg. According to his parents, he was planning to attend interviews for a summer job on the day of his disappearance, but did not attend them. His friends and relatives deny he was gay, but later research indicated that he had many acquaintances who were drug addicts or drug traffickers. Witnesses claim they had seen him at a bus stop in the early morning of March 7th. Instead of waiting for the bus, he accepted a ride from a passing car. When found, he had an apparent burn mark on his left shoulder and had been strangled with a rope.
Yeah.
Now it seems like maybe it's like hands off, or not, like you said, from behind or something.
Could be.
29-year-old Mike Glenn, clad only in his underwear, was found in a ditch near Eaton, Ohio, August 15th, 1986. Lived separately from his parents in a trailer park located on the outskirts of Indianapolis, where he worked as a handyman. Strangulation marks, possibly from a rope, were found on his neck. He was identified 3 years after his discovery with the help of fingerprinting. James Boyd Robbins, 21. 1987, October of 87. Strangulation marks. I70. Man, you would think they would see this guy doing this over and over. Like, it looks like about twice a year.
Yeah, if the guy was living a squeaky clean life and a business owner, nothing pointing directly to him. He could go unnoticed for a long time. I wonder did they say what initially led them to him, or what?
Well,
it was that kid finding the skull, or was that later on?
They just have a couple more here, and I think they're somehow linking these to him because of where they were at. You had August of 89, Stephen Elliott strangled. Clay Boatman, 32, August of 90, went to a gay bar, strangled, found in a ditch. Thomas Ray Clevenger Jr., 18, September of 1990, semi-nude body found at an abandoned railroad track near Greenville. This is like a little circle of this area this guy was operating in. Grew up in a poor neighborhood in Indianapolis. Shortly before his death, he engaged in prostitution. So you could see where this guy could pull up. It's kind of like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing. He could pull up, he sees the type, he knows. After a while, he just knows.
Or Gacy.
Jump in the car.
John Wayne Gacy,
Final one that they had here, 42-year-old Otto Becker, found in a ditch, August of 91. While investigating this murder, police identified several witnesses who claimed to have seen Becker in a car with another male on I-70. The witnesses were taken to the police station and shown photographs, but none of them were matched to the alleged abductor. So now here's where we get into the Fox Hollow Farm killings. In May of 88, Baumeister purchased and moved to Fox Hollow Farm, an 18-acre property built in 1978 off of 156th Street and the Monon Trail. In 1994, his son had been playing in the wooded backyard when he found a complete, partially buried human skeleton. He explained to his family that it had been one of his father's dissecting skeletons. So here's my thing. Before I go any further, why are you offering an explanation when you could have just said,
"Yep,
I have no idea"?
Wow.
Why did you have to give an explanation that it was one of your and then you throw your dad under the bus, who might not even be around anymore? It was a dissecting skeleton. He had it stored in their garage and buried it in the garden again after he cleaned out the garage. That's what he told the family. So this was...
Well, if you didn't come up with the cover story, then you'd have to call the cops because that would be unusual. You'd have a skull. But if you had a reason to have it...
He's got the whole skeleton. I thought it was just the skull from what I read in the other article.
Right.
So that was 94. So in 96, investigators recovered human bone fragments of at least 11 people buried there on the farm. In a new search in December of 2022, there was a bone found, and they were able to identify 20 additional locations that might have remains buried under the ground. Only 8 people have been identified since that discovery. So they're still going through that.
I wonder why it took so long. Why that big jump from the late 90s to 2022? When they went back and searched again.
Sounds like once they did and they had to go through and do all the DNA stuff, it probably got really tough because most of the people were vagrants.
Nothing to match it to. No family members.
Right. Yeah, so they're asking people if they had missing family members from the mid-'80s to mid-'90s in the Indianapolis area to complete a DNA test in efforts to help identify the victims' remains.
Right.
As of January 2024, forensic experts continue to identify nearly 10,000 portions of human remains recovered from an unknown number of victims at the Fox Hollow Farm. So they had that list. There's a few extras. So these must be the ones that they did identify. John Baird, Jeffrey Jones, Richard Hamilton Jr., Alan Livingston, Stephen Hale, Alan Broussard, Roger Goodlett, Michael Kieran, and then it goes on to say those were 93 through 95. Then the next guy, Manuel Resendez, 34, last seen at a gay bar downtown Indianapolis, August 6, 1993. In January 24, they were able to identify his remains, recovered in 1996 from the farm. They matched a family reference sample that was submitted in early 2023. So somebody came forward and said, yeah, we want to know where this person is. Maybe he was a victim, and he was. So that would suck. You have your thoughts and you go, all right, take my DNA. And then they're like, oh, by the way, yeah, unfortunately you were right.
Yeah, at least there's some closure there, I suppose.
Authorities have publicly and posthumously linked the unsolved disappearance of Jerry Comer to Baumeister. He was last seen August 95. His vehicle was found at the Castleton Square Mall. As a young gay man, he fit the profile of Baumeister's victims, despite the fact his remains were never recovered from the residence. Oh, wow. So what led to this? By the early 90s, investigators from the Marion County Sheriff's Department and Indianapolis Police Department began to investigate the disappearances of gay men of similar age, height, and weight in the Indianapolis area. In 1994, they were contacted by a man named Tony Harris, claiming that a gay bar patron called himself Brian Smart had likely killed a friend of his, Roger Goodlett. Based on the suspicions in Goodlett's missing persons case, and had attempted to kill him with a pool hose during an erotic asphyxiation session in his mansion after he had met him at a local Indianapolis gay bar, the 501 Club. Harris eventually saw this man again in August of 95, following his car and noting his license plate number. Police identified the Brian Smart as Herb Baumeister. So I think you nailed it.
Alias.
I think you could be an investigator. You nailed it. A pool hose, though, he was just grabbing anything he could find.
Yeah.
That's really weird. Investigators then approached Baumeister and told him he was a suspect in the disappearances and asked to search his house. Both him and his wife refused to allow a search of their property. And by June of 96, so when did I say that started? 94?
Yep.
I don't know why it was taking so long. So by June of 96, she became frightened by her husband's erratic behavior. And after filing for divorce, she consented for them to search. So he was on a vacation, and they searched while he was gone, and it turned up the remains of 11 men, 8 of whom were identified. With a warrant out for his arrest, he fled to Ontario, where he committed suicide at a park on Lake Huron with a .357 Magnum handgun to the head. He left a 3-page note. He regretted messing up the park, he wrote, and felt badly about his broken marriage and failing business, but he did not mention the remains of his victims or admit to any crime. He described items on his trip that that he wanted to do it to himself in a different place, but seeing that there were children there changed his mind. And for his final meal, he had a peanut butter sandwich. This is the note he left.
Wow.
All right.
Interesting.
There's, there's a lot on this. I would think we would have heard about this, and we live here in the same state. That's crazy. And it's wild because, you know, you own a business. He had 2 locations. People are going to know who you are. You're going to have some notoriety.
Yeah.
And then you're in your own quote unquote backyard.
Hey. Seems like they would have narrowed it down. Everything's happening within a four block or so area.
And, you know, finally the one guy, after how many years, recognizes him as a different name and says, "That's your guy."
Right.
And
the alias.
And then he sketches out when he thinks they're onto him. I'm going to take a vacation. She's divorcing him by then.
Well, thank God for his wife finally allowing the cops in there and cracking the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I like when they try to get into the psyche of these guys. And it's like I said, he's a business owner. He's around town. Now he's scoping out the same gay bars in a 4-block radius. So you would think after a while everybody'd see this guy 2 or 3 times. It sounds like he had some money to have multiple vehicles.
Yeah.
They talked about vans. That could have been a work van. They talked about a Jeep. They talked about cars. And I don't know, maybe, you know, it's where he was at. He would go all the way over to Ohio, out in the rural areas and stuff. Maybe there was family property out there.
Yeah, how many more victims are there that he didn't bury on his own?
And he couldn't have been the only guy doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep going back to the Dahmer thing because it's like a lot of the same MO.
Yeah, Dahmer was a little more.
He had a
little more kink in there.
But he had
liked
a type
to eat the people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he had a type.
Yeah.
So he knew when he was out trolling for him,
right,
that he was going to see one eventually and go, that's
right.
I got to play it cool, get him in the car. Once I get him in the car, I can figure it out. You
would think nowadays with the profiling techniques and maybe even better technology, they may be able to zero in on the that four block radius or some common denominators, and maybe not slip through the cracks. And so many people have to be victims then, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine in 2024 anybody getting away with half of what he did in the 90s with so many cameras. And,
but there was no cell phones back
then. You
know,
yeah.
Everybody's tracked everywhere now.
He would have been in the background of somebody's Instagram post.
Yeah.
You know,
cameras.
He was at the club. We saw him at the club. Here's the camera footage from the bar, from the door, security. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. I mean, if you got a phone on you, you're being tracked. Your whereabouts are
right.
No mystery.
Having this conversation with my phone in the room, I'm going to get ads for shows and for products and for
and save a lot commercials.
Save a lot. If that's the same Save a Lot, oh my God, that'd be weird.
It doesn't matter if it isn't. You're going to get Save a Lot commercials now.
Yeah, or gay bar coupons or something.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Gay bar coupons.
It's like I don't know, man. It's like I'm not trying to say I'm putting myself in his position of wanting to do that, but I do kind of visualize as I'm reading through all that stuff, like, what's he thinking? How's he planning this out? How's he finding the time with a wife and 3 kids at home? Like, after a while,
he ain't spending any time in the bedroom.
No, at all. But it's like, you can't just keep saying I'm working late.
Right.
It's after a while.
Well, he's a business owner. He's got 2 businesses.
They're talking about, like, the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Picking dudes up at these bars and stuff. And it's like,
it's a business meeting. It's a late night.
She didn't know that was going on. I think she knew.
Well, again, it's not your traditional sort of matrimony there. He probably did a lot of odd things, and she just got used to him not being around.
Right after they got married, he was put away for a couple of months by his dad.
Right. Too much drinking the pee-pee juice.
And then to tell your friends, you guys ever drink pee? No, not lately. You want to?
Boy.
I'm going to pee on the teacher's desk later.
Yeah, the parties he must have attended. Instead of the hairy buffalo, everybody pee in the cup and pass it around.
The golden shower.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, so we graduated the same year, but we went to different high schools. And so at my high school, so there was a kid. I had class with him. Seemed all right, goofy kid. We're all goofy kids at one point, you know. He got held back. So the next year, he was taking the same courses, basically. Mm-hmm. And he jerked off on a teacher's desk after she left the room. And I'm thinking, number one,
wow,
what a performer. To have that kind of concentration and to finish.
The rest of the class was there?
The rest of the class was there.
Wow.
And to finish.
Holy cow.
And I'm thinking maybe he had an audience. Maybe they didn't know what he was doing back there. And he left it on the teacher's desk, like on a napkin or something, like a gift, I guess. Or an offering. Yeah. I don't know what you want to call it, but.
Gross. I would call it gross. But
she was home ec, so maybe he was trying to say we got eggs.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, egg white batter.
So for this guy, I get stage fright to pee at a concert or something. I got to go in the stall. Nobody around. I can't have a noise. Oh, there's a noise. I got to wait.
Yeah.
This dude's peeing in the class on the desk. I gotta figure as soon as somebody hears that familiar sound of the water hitting the surface,
splash,
they're turned around watching.
Oh yeah,
and that's when my spigot would just go done, dry.
Yeah, well,
put it away.
You're probably also not a serial killer either.
It's not grandma's boy.
There's some things.
I can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Not a serial killer yet.
Things don't always function the same for everyone. Yeah. So if you got the tendency to have the capacity to strangle somebody, I'm sure somebody watching you pee doesn't really bother you.
No.
Especially if you have a fetish about pee or urine. What
do they call it? Uropathy or something.
Yeah.
Something weird. But once I started looking at these articles about this type of stuff, what I wanted to do was look at what was like around the Midwest where we live. Because I was like, wow, there's a lot of shit going on around here. Yeah. Then it got into where people would find bodies over the years. And I'm not going to go through it all now, but if you want to do this again, believe me, there's people with buying a house. They open the garage. There's a chest freezer. For whatever reason, the chest freezer never got inspected in the house sale. Let's open the chest freezer and see what's in there. Oh my God, it's somebody's grandfather, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Or somebody passed away at a Planet Fitness in the tanning bed, and we're in there for 3 days. Why aren't you cleaning the place?
That's my first thought.
Why aren't you checking on that room that you gave the guy the little pass for, I need 8 minutes. Somebody should have been after, like, knocking on the door, like, hey, your 8 minutes are up, dude.
Right.
3 days. Then there was another one I found. Chicago airports are right by us. Found a body in the baggage claim. Was there for a week.
Wow.
What are you doing that you can't smell a corpse in the baggage claim? I mean, look, it smells around places, okay, but not like that. Come on.
Yeah, well, it must have been hidden under something or around something, behind something, but wow, the tanning bed one blows my mind because
3 days.
You must not be busy where you're having a lot of tanners because you would need that room.
And right? it was patrons walking through the hallway or whatever going, what is that smell?
Oh yeah,
that is rancid. Like what the hell? Finally they were like,
Yeah, we should check this locked room.
we should go ahead and go in, and there he is. So
and Mr. Doe never checked out.
Exactly. That's what got me. I'm thinking, man, I better not ever pass out or have a heart attack in a tanning bed or something. There's another one that I saw where that's the body cam, the cop's camera, right? And they're talking to this guy in his driveway, and he's like, I don't know where she's at. She dumped me. So you like when you're watching this like documentary on it, you're kind of brought into the middle of this situation. You don't know what's going on, and then they unfold it. And what it was, they were looking for this woman who had disappeared. She was the girlfriend of this guy that they're talking to. He didn't exactly have all his marbles.
Okay.
So they kind of ruled him out as a suspect. But he had one of these mothers that were all up in his business doing all this stuff who had a falling out with the girlfriend. So they go over to the guy's house that the mother owned but didn't live with him. And they said, would this girl have been in the garage? And he's like, to get her stuff when she moved out.
Okay.
She left me, whatever, another guy, blah, blah, blah. He's all pissed off. And they're thinking, man, that's kind of a motive, but he's not really the guy. So they go in the garage and they find like big totes, like like a tote you keep stuff in.
Sure.
Snap lid. Guy opens. He goes, you got to have a warrant to open that. And he goes, no, he gave us permission, and there's probable because of the smell.
Oh boy.
And they crack that thing open, and he goes, yep.
Oh,
she's in there.
Or at least parts of her.
The mom.
The mom did it.
Took her out. Jealous of the son. Jealous of the girl with the son. Constantly picking at her, all this. Took her out. Folded her up. Little frame chick. Folded her up. Put her in this bin.
Wow.
And just leaves it in her son's garage. Like he's the one that's going to get caught if they ever come.
Oh, no.
And they knew right then, from what they had been told, conflicting info, that the only other person that would have had some information about the garage or something was his mom.
Yeah. The opportunity,
so she immediately
access,
busted. Yeah. So there's stuff like that too. Like it's a rabbit hole. The things, the lengths that people go to get someone out of their life. And I'm like, I tell my wife, like, hey, listen. If it ever gets that bad, just say you want out. You want to leave.
You don't have to kill me.
Nobody has to die here today.
Exactly.
Like, I won't like it, but I'll go, or you go, or whatever. Like, I don't understand how it gets to that point. Like the guy in Texas that worked at the oil refinery had a girlfriend behind his wife's back, and she was pregnant, and they had 2 other girls, and they disappear. The girls and her disappear. And he's telling everybody that she left him. And his neighbor's like, I think something. As soon as the neighbor sees the cops, he's like, come on over here. I think I don't trust this guy, and I'll show you why. He pulls up his driveway camera, shows that dude at like 3 a.m, putting big-ass garbage bags or something in a sheet in the back of his truck. He's like, he don't never do that. He ain't never up at that 3 a.m. He ain't going on no trip. He's like, I'm telling you, that's not good. They bring the dude over there, and they show him that video. I don't know if you saw that. He was shitting his pants. He stuffed his wife and kids in a damn oil tank at his work site, like way out in the boonies, just so he didn't have to admit that he had a girlfriend, just like the Scott Peterson and all that other stuff. It's like, guys, you're doing what guys do. You're feeling your oats still. You want to conquer. And you can't man up to it, so you take your wife out?
I don't understand how you.
And you got to take your kids out?
Getting caught. Of course, you're not in your right mind.
No, not at all.
That, but so you're not thinking clearly. But
just to protect your lies to the girlfriend, you're going to take the family out and think she's never going to hear about this?
Wow. Yeah.
To this day, the Scott Peterson rings in my head because like he takes her to his favorite fishing place and does the horrible stuff he did to her and their unborn baby and stuff. Right. And it's like, dude.
Yep.
You could have just told the girlfriend, all right, listen, it's been fun, but here's the truth.
Right. Or get a divorce.
Or get a divorce and keep going with it. Right.
Whatever it is, but yeah.
Perpetuating a lie by taking your family out of existence.
Oh, yeah, that was the most brutal one where he had to strangle his 2 young daughters. I mean, like 3, 4 years old. You talk about earlier where you said, like, the 3 years old. You talk about earlier where you said, like, the 3 years old. You talk about 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 3 years old.
it's like the passionate thing. It's the love and the what do you call it? Like the intimacy.
Sure.
You're that close. This is a person that depends on you and loves you, and they're looking at you going, what? Why?
You can almost rationalize somebody in the heat of the moment. You know, they always, well, the main suspect is always the husband, the boyfriend, whatever, because it's somebody that's close to you. But when you're killing your own kids just so you can continue an affair, like what is going through your head? Nothing. I don't know.
What was
you'd have to detach. I don't know how you could do it.
What was the girl? They found her daughter in a storage bin like that.
Casey Anthony,
and then she wanted to go party
in the trunk.
Yeah, she wanted to go party and didn't know she was in there. And then she claimed later that she left her in there to take a nap or something. I don't know, something screwed up.
Yeah,
I mean,
just so she can live the single, free life again.
When you could have just got a sitter.
Or what's the Smith lady, Susan Smith, drove her kids
car and
drove into the lake. Yep. Because she was dating a guy that didn't want kids, and they were a burden, and so let's just
forget letting the ex take them for the weekend.
Right.
I don't know, man.
I can't be the only one that drives by a garbage bag on the side of the road and go, does that look like a body in there?
Sometimes you wonder, like that ain't leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what drives people, like you said, though. Like maybe the guy, the Burmeister. Maybe the thing was he was fighting those feelings,
right?
But he was getting like a sexual release, and then it did something in his brain, almost like a drug habit. It clicked off some endorphins for him.
Yeah,
and he's chasing that dragon after that. Like I'm compelled to continue to do this,
right? And
then it sounds like he was almost. Then he switched it up to where he was hands off, using some kind of implement.
Mm-hmm. Well, you still got to be close to him.
And then they said
they're still struggling.
He tells the guy that survived him that he said it was a sexual thing, right? So is he telling him, "Hey, I'll choke you. This is this erotic thing. Trust me."
Right. Like the autoerotic fixation.
Yeah, trust me.
Yeah.
And then and that way he's hands off, but he still gets that. I don't want to call it a thrill. I don't know what something.
And like you said, maybe some of those, who knows, don't blame the victim, but maybe some of it was consensual up to a point, and then he wanted to take it further, who knows?
Right.
I like it.
All right, cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.